What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, welcoming you to week 7 of the bulking vlog series update. So, lots of things going on here. Last week, I alluded to the fact that I'm going to be trying some new things, changing some things up, experimenting with some things, and I'm kind of figuring out exactly where I want to go with that. I'm going to have I've got that pretty well mapped out. I'm going to likely start those changes and tweaks at the 1st of July, if all goes well. So I will be sure to keep you up to date on what all those changes entail. But in the meantime, we're just going to focus on some of the variables that I do have control over. I've got control over all the variables. But woke up this morning at a weight of 194.7, which is definitely the highest I've been to date, I think, barring that 230-pound escapade before I was ever keto. So I'm tapping on 200-pound mark's door right now, which is kind of crazy. I haven't been that heavy in a while. And generally speaking, for competitors, if you're competing on a regular basis, there's not really benefit to going much beyond, 20, 30 pounds of stage weight, because the more weight you put on, the more weight you're going to have to take off, and you're going to have to diet more aggressively, and it's just going to be sloppy. You don't want to be sloppy. Realistically, I'm about, my lightest weight was 151, I think. My best look, I believe, was 155 to 157. So I'm up quite a bit from that, 155, 65, 75, 85, 95. I'm up 40 pounds from my best look. Would I want to lose 40 pounds into prep? No, not really. However, I think I've also built some pretty significant muscle, like surprisingly more so than I thought possible. I'm going to get a DEXA scan in the near future. I'm going to get some caliper measurements. My InBody says that I'm between 16 and 18% depending on the day. So there is that from the InBody. I would like to get a DEXA scan so I can see increase in lean tissue from the DEXA scan that I've been measuring with this entire time to see kind of what changes are there. But I feel like my composition now is about on par with what it was prior to me starting the prep, like I said in the last video, and I'm 10 pounds up from that. Now, do I think I've gained 10 pounds of solid skeletal muscle tissue? No, of course not. But I do think I've definitely gained some solid muscle. My strength markers have all improved, so I am excited to see what that looks like in a numerical fashion. As far as some changes that have taken place, like I said, I'm probably going to be manipulating some changes, probably going to focus more so on leaning out a little bit, kind of like I've alluded to, staying within about 12 to 18% body fat. I'd kind of like to I'm on the higher end of that now. I'd kind of like to get more towards the lower end of that. Those changes will all take place likely in the beginning of July, like I mentioned before. So until then, I'm just going to try and let my body stabilize. What I've noticed, and then we can kind of dump into my chronometer dashboard here. So you can see from an energy calorie standpoint, it's been trending down overall, yet my weight has been trending up a little bit overall, and that's because of this lag effect that takes place with food, with consumption. If I go to my charts, you can kind of see this more eloquently illustrated via the graph here. So again, since I started using chronometer, this is all starting in February, so definitely post-competition season. Intake has been pretty high. They're peaking in probably March and April, I would say, and it's been steadily declining since then. My weight has been steadily increasing. Like you see the steady increase, pretty much peaking now at the 194 that I was at this morning. Again, I am building some muscle, so that's going to skew things a little bit. It's not going to be a one-to-one trade-off here. But there is this lag effect that takes place with the food you consume and when that gets translated into body fat. What I've noticed in myself personally is that I'm still hungry consuming the amount of food that I've been consuming. I've been averaging between about 3,000 and 4,000 calories here lately. I've had a few high days. For instance, I had a high day. I had 3,800 calories, 3,500 calories. So I've had a few high days. Let me go actually to my diary here. We can kind of look at some of the intake from these past few days. So energy 4,000 calories, 3,400 calories, 5,300 calories. That was definitely the high day. 3,300 calories, 4,900 calories, 3,400, 3,300. So averaging probably between 3,500 and 4,000, I would say. But I'm still hungry at that intake. And what's interesting is that my food choices have been absolutely pristine. Like, I do not deviate from keto. The quality of the meat I'm consuming is all literally top notch, creme de la creme, grass fed, grass finished, locally sourced, raised ourselves, hunted myself. So like the best quality food you can consume. And I've still gained quite a bit of weight and body fat. So there are some people in the space that suggest that you can't gain weight and body fat eating the right food. That is obviously not true. And there are also instances, and I kind of alluded to this last week as well, in which when my protein is incredibly high, I notice a lot more joint pain and inflammation. So to suggest that there is no cap on dietary protein and that that is a free macronutrient that you can consume at an excess without any negative recourse, that is obviously not true as well. There is certainly a sweet spot from a macronutrient distribution standpoint and an overall caloric intake standpoint. That in tandem with hormone function, activity levels, sleep quality, recovery, all that stuff is all very important. So what I'm going to do for the next little bit, probably month, 6 weeks or so, is just eat between that 3,000 to 5,000 calorie range, likely maybe a few high days, all from quality sources. Give my body time to stabilize. Like, I should in theory feel relatively full at that intake, but I'm not. I'm still pretty hungry. So I'm trying to let that stabilize. And I'm just kind of giving my body time to do so, eating the high quality foods and just figuring out where that number kind of resides. I'm not really worried about the scale weight right now. I'm not really worried about the body fat that I'm putting on because, again, I would not want to cut down from 40 pounds for a show, but I'm not going to compete for several years. So where my body actually stabilizes and levels off may be between 20 and 25 pounds of where I would actually compete at. So none of these markers are negative or bad. Like, I feel great right now. My strength markers are all going up. Everything's good in that regard. Speaking of strength, one thing I am doing differently this week is I am going to do a legitimate strategic deload week. So I haven't had a structured deload. It's been a long time. I don't think I had a deload at all during the prep. I don't think I had a deload at all after the prep. And I mean, it's been over a year since I've had a structured deload. There's been times where I've traveled a little bit, so I wouldn't have the normal training load that I normally do, but not a structured deload. I'm going to have a structured deload this week. We're going to be going for KetoCon, the conference there in Austin, Texas. We'll be traveling a little bit for that. The way I structure my deload weeks is basically just designed to give my CNS a breather from the heavy loads, and I'll do that by pretty much going through the exact same training split and exercise movements and routines, but with a significantly reduced training load and intensity. So whereas I may be deadlifting 405, during deload week I'll only probably go up to 225. So pretty much everything is cut in half from a weight standpoint, and I typically keep the rep count at around 12 reps so that I can get plenty of blood flow and just really focus on how that exercise and that movement makes me feel, make sure I'm getting the proper range of motion, proper form and technique, really just engaging and connecting with the muscle, having that mind-muscle connection, really focusing on that during the deload week when the loads are lighter is key, because then you can just ensure that, okay, this is still benefiting me. I'm still getting something out of this movement, and it gives your CNS a breather before you go into another week of heavy lifting. So figured pairing that with the KetoCon week made sense because there's no telling when I'm going to be able to train, what my gym equipment's going to look like as we're traveling. So just kind of throwing that structured deload week in this week made sense. So that's what my plans are there. So that's pretty much what we're looking like from a weight standpoint, from a composition standpoint. Again, I'm probably going to get a DEXA scan and a caliper test here in the near future. Probably have crystal reduced circumference measurements as well so I can see how things are looking there. But things are definitely looking thick. You can see the pictures. Chip will throw some of those up here. Feel strong, feel powerful. I feel like I still have shape, but I definitely have more body fat. Like, there's just no denying that. But I still have visible abs, and I still have cuts in my legs, showing the separation in the quads. And I feel like as long as I've got some telltale signs like that to kind of keep me honest, keep me accountable, I can be strategic with things. Like if I just throw all caution to the wind and I lose all definition and you can't see the line between my bicep and my tricep, then we got some problems. I'm not going to let myself get that out of hand. But giving my body, giving my brain a psychological shift and just a moment to embrace the body fat in this building phase is okay, as long as I keep it within reason and am focusing on training hard and actually adding more lean tissue to my frame. If I'm adding more lean tissue, I'm all for it. If I stop adding lean tissue, my strength markers decline, my inflammation increases, and I'm just gaining body fat, that's when you got to really tap the brakes and be honest with yourself and correct course. But to my knowledge, that has not yet happened. So I'm going to keep on rocking it. So that is all I got to say for week 7. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next week for week 8.